Sometimes we ask for permission from places that do not need to give you that permission. You're the only one that needs to decide, like, oh, where would I like to pour my energy and knowledge and resources, really? To answer a very short question, long as in those moments where you know that you feel alive, having conversations like this is like not just on the dinner table with your friends, but maybe with more people that you haven't met yet. And just to make sense of it so that you are like, okay, I want to be on the right side of feeling good about my skills being utilized for something better and bigger. And it's not always profit that we have in mind.
Welcome to Sustainability Transformations podcast, where we explore bold ideas to drive a sustainable change for people, the community, and business. Today's guest is Kremena Yordanova, a fractional CMO who blends global brand strategy with conscious leadership, with a career that started from C and expanded to leading teams in Adidas and Reebok. She now supports brands to scale with empathy and impact. And the core goal of our conversation is to explore what it really means to lead and grow with integrity in today's fast-moving, mission-driven business. Kremena, thank you for joining us. Your journey spans cruise ships, global brands, and soul-centered retreats. What's one life experience that has shaped how you now define sustainable leadership?
Wow. Thanks for having me first and foremost, and for pronouncing my name absolutely correctly. That's a first win. Honestly, there were so many experiences in my life, and it's a massive cliche to say every experience brings you closer to the person you've always wanted to be or you knew you'll be. But kind of is true. I started my career quite early. I had to leave my country of origin. I'm Bulgarian, and back then it was very difficult to find a space where you can really explore all your skills. So I had to leave the country quite young, and the first opportunity was on a cruise ship. And even there, I must admit that it was so fascinating how everything we were doing was meant to not pollute the oceans. And I was fascinated by the detail that we had to undertake, because there were rules and there are embedded things that are just practices. And it stood out because I was thinking before our conversation, how many of those things we simply forget in our normal routines, in our normal different versions of careers, that we think that, wow, we'll wait till we can change something when they ask us to do so. So there were many moments in my career where I would say, wow, I really need to live with integrity and my values need to be met. Yeah, I spend a lot of time talking about how you can craft that for yourself, how it's not a privilege only, but it's a must for more people to be able to use their skills for bigger goals and bigger ideas that are benefiting more the community rather than just your own kind of egoistic or kind of career ladder progression. First experience on the cruise ships really helped me to see, wow, we can do things differently. Of course, it comes with a bag of different challenges there, but it really opened my mind about, well, nothing goes to waste. You really need to be careful that we are not polluting the oceans. And funnily enough, I spent almost 20 years with a company that was in the field of sports goods industry, and biggest campaigns like Run for the Oceans with Adidas till very recently. I was part of their teams, and it just all comes together in a very funny way, that you just never know when you will be putting one step at a time, what type of knowledge you'll be bringing to brands that simply don't have the resources yet, or simply need to be thinking of how they promote their services and products differently. So I would say that every year you would kind of do your best to craft something that is valuable, not for the sake of, oh my God, look at me, I'm so valuable, but for the sake of how much of that you can optimize later on in life. Yeah, so it wasn't one, but I can think of a clear moment when I've decided to step away from corporate because it wasn't sustainable for me at that stage anymore to be leading these massive teams and to be doing a fractional roles. Was a moment when I was asked to be a judge on a competition for social entrepreneurship with a Holt Prize, which I'm heading back for a third year now in a month, and I'm super excited. And everyone was there with the same mission of changing the world and making sure that they are putting resources, ideas, skills to really change things that are for the better, not just for the environment, which is something we spoke before recording. When we think of sustainability, we often think only the environment or climate, but there is so much more depth into the conversations that we have. It's how we lead. It's how we make sure that it's not only for the profit, because the future depends on definitely the solutions we'll put forward. So that moment when I was asked to both judge and also be mentor really changed my mind. I was like, wow, I felt so alive doing something that I believe in. And then it clicked, like, why wouldn't I do this all the time? Sometimes we ask for permission from places that do not need to give you that permission. You're the only one that needs to decide, like, oh, where would I like to pour my energy and knowledge and resources, really? Yeah, I think to answer a very short question, I think it's in those moments where you know that you feel alive. Having conversations like this is like not just on the dinner table with your friends, but maybe with more people that you haven't met yet. And just to make sense of it so that you are like, okay, I want to be on the right side of feeling good about my skills being utilized for something better and bigger. And it's not always profit that we have in mind. Yeah.
I'm very pleased we'll be exploring those aspects of sustainable leadership, because there is a trend of when people complete education or university looking for career, and then after a few years of the career, yes, there is the money, and then after a while there is a knock on the door about what is the meaning of this, what is the purpose of this, which internally that knock on the door starts to ask very uncomfortable questions. And I'm glad you've been able to walk through. So hopefully some of the listeners can relate to that. But in the sustainability space, there is now a surfacing of burnout. And I think some of the things you mentioned is to do with sometimes they could just be delivering reporting, compliance, but a year, 2, 3, 4 years down the line, and 4 years is the average chain of sustainability leaders, when it compared to other leaders is maybe 6 years or more. So yeah, what I'm trying to highlight is there is an embedded challenge. So it would be good to explore those aspects. So you lived as you mentioned, in the Balkans, Siberia, and now Amsterdam, if I'm right. How has that cultural mosaic shaped your leadership lens?
I often don't get the chance to think about my upbringing because you get so embedded into the new culture that you are. And I've been in the Netherlands for 20 years, but definitely the pragmatism from the Balkans comes through sometimes in my leadership, because in the beginning I would highly and very, very consciously will translate literally what some of the wisdom from my country will bring into any conversation. And then, of course, it falls flat because it doesn't belong to the difference. I would say that striving and and making sure that people understand that there is deeper knowing into settling into. I'll give you the example. For instance, in my language, when we speak of leader, it means like through your hands, like rakovodja. And you're trying to explain it. And you're trying to say like, wow, funnily, but we use different parts of the body to express something that is different, but it means the same. And because I was practicing always yoga, speaking about somatic leadership and all of that, and even these little differences of trying to explain, or not trying to explain, but just saying like, you show people how to do some things, because let's not forget that way before we were using only our brains, and now even with the technology that is coming, we will not be able to even use the brain as much as we count it on. It was through hands. Like leaders back in the days were showing things and were leading in that manner, and it stood out in our language. And when you come here, you're trying to be. I was trying for the longest time to fit in first and foremost before I got the chance to lead teams the way I've always thought it was the right way. I was lucky enough to have amazing leaders, and I think role models are extremely important, because then you can fit in your own narrative of, wow, I would want to be experiencing my leadership in this manner. And then, of course, you get the chance to cross-check it with your own team. And trust is a big thing so that you can bring your knowledge into a completely different environment. I had more than 16 nationalities in the office that we were leading here, like we were having here. And that comes with a lot of knowledge that everyone brings and a lot of misunderstanding of how we communicate, how we lead, how we co-create together. But I would say that what I bring is this pragmatic way of thinking. And it's some people in the beginning would call me that we never know if she thinks this or thinks that. Because in Bulgarian, actually, when we say yes and when we say no, it's completely different. And it confuses people. Even the nonverbal communication, they're like, why are you disagreeing with me? And in my head, I'm like, I was totally agreeing with you. But that's one of these funny things where you would be on a call. Before that, we were in meetings, not in calls. And people have the understanding that she completely disagrees with my proposal. And I'm like, no, I was actually completely agreeing with you. So even this small change of like, yes is no, no is yes, verbally and non-verbally with your signals. And now when I go back home, is the opposite is true. They will be like, oh, she agrees or she disagrees. And I'm like, okay, you need to code switch a little bit to be able to be understood. But I would say the yes and no and the what leadership through hands gestures means was the one that stands out because it's very easy to remember.
One of the areas you've mentioned is about being able to adapt from a leadership in sustainability. How critical do you think it is for leaders to be able to adapt? Perhaps I can give you a context. There is numerous stories about how Blockbuster was not able to adapt enough, and Netflix even went to Blockbuster for them to buy early days, and they didn't. You can go through a whole list of these companies. So, what would you say your experience about being able to adapt from different cultures is so important?
You mean for brands or overall? Because adaptability is going to be the skill that we all need to not just anchor in our being, but really master. If before we were having changes every 6 months or every 3 years or anything like that, now it's like every month. If not every week, something new is popping up for our attention. And I think that the most valuable skill is this adaptability, but not triggered from the next shiny thing. If anything, we will need to have adaptability rooted in calmness, rooted in okay, I see what's happening. I see where we're going with this. And we are not going to change our strategy or adapt it just because everyone else is doing it. The fear there is that because it's happening so fast, we will be exhausting our leadership, or we will exhausting the people that we leading. Oh, today is this, tomorrow is that. Oh, now we are, plastic free. Tomorrow we are this, tomorrow we are that. Like, it can create a lot of adaptability, yes, but adaptability rooted in the calm knowing that this will work because we've done our homework. I think that will be super important. The only way to adapt is really to immerse yourself. The way I moved countries and embedded myself in different cultures was exactly, I think when you're younger, it's kind of easier, to be honest. And you get to see how you operate in a different environment. But adaptability needs to come very, very. We need to upskill many of our folks that work with us, but it starts with also us. Like, what are the new skills that we need to acquire so that we get the chance to know, okay, this is useful. This might go this way. We might be wrong completely about some of our assumptions. We're putting a lot of, we're putting a lot of trust that the future will be bright. At least every time I go to events is the two clubs, like, we're doomed, nothing good is coming. I'm more optimistic, even though I'm very pragmatic and very like, we have lots of work to do. But I definitely feel that the adaptability that we need to acquire needs to be rooted in calmness and see the bigger picture, that we get to decide how we want to paint it. It's really, really crucial. It's high time. It's not just words that we are putting loosely out there. We can optimize our skills to be finding solutions for really fundamental issues that we have in our societies. Not to think that, oh, let's leave it to the next generation to worry about, or let's leave it to the 2, 3, whatever generations, or God forbid, we just all decide we're gonna go to Mars and that's it. We're fine like that. I think we're living in a very interesting times where we have much more responsibility with that adaptability than we can quote unquote handle, and we can choose how we want to handle it. You can either do your steps towards it, or you can just ignore the problem and it can become much bigger.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So, what does scaling with soul mean to you practically?
Which one? Scaling.
Scaling with soul, with a
So
soul aspect. Yeah.
it's when you know that you're leading with integrity, when you know that the product you put out there, the campaigns you're running, or anything that you are literally, as a marketeers, we have the power to be changing people's minds with the art we're putting out there. I believe that marketing is in this intersection between, yes, we can change cultures because we're putting art out there. And I know that many of us don't feel like we're artists in corporates, but eventually that's it. You have the power to move people's emotions and hopefully actions. The same way we can push people to click on this button and buy the next pair of shoes, we also can make a change within them so that they can actually, nothing else is left. According to me, it's like the soul is the last thing we have, because it first was like, oh wow, we can optimize everything and automate everything. Now even the intellectual work can be outsourced to other type of technologies. And what's left? That's why I kind of cheeky call it like scaling with soul, meaning that can you sit with yourself and that deeper knowing that at night I've done nothing that either hurts the environment or makes someone, quote unquote, suffer from my decisions. You sit well with your soul. And you can call it soul, you can call it guidelines, you can call it inner knowing, whatever your belief system is. But I put there soul because it's like we hear this like it's soulless or soulless in societies. And it's like, yeah, well, how do we bring that back? What keeps you kind of really alive? What type of businesses you want to see out there that are helping rather than harming? I would say that anyone that gets the chance to do the work that they're best at, and knowing that they can sit with themselves at night, not having any question of like, how is my soul feeling like? When something is off. It will manifest with, I don't know, minor diseases or things like that. And you will notice that I'm not quite okay with how I'm leading my life. And I'm a big believer that the bodies are always telling us all the truth. And we are just like giving a chance to catch up with those signals. Yeah, I would say that's super important to me because I've been on both sides to know like what it's like to do something that you really, really love. And that is something that your whole mind, soul, and body is into. And I've also been like, oh wow, what do I need to do to quote unquote survive? And both have its place. It's not that one is better than the other. It's just a matter of like, okay, where do you want to sit on that spectrum? Yeah.
It's nice to see how to notice when is a tipping point where you are growing with purpose. I think someone quoted saying, once you find what you love, you stop working for the rest of your life. Meaning you just excited, passionate about, whichever challenge that you're doing. So
That actually
that's
is also, I wanted to mention that it's a very nice privilege to find that passion and but I would say that's only one part of it, because you still need to be able to go for it. And you might have a lot of preconceived ideas of like how it's going to look like. If I'm only mentoring for 2-3 years, how is that going to look like on my CV or any of those decisions? Just because you love something, you always have to also be able to say like, yeah, it sits well with me. I shouldn't care what others think, and vice versa. On like, there is the danger because you love something so much. I see it with many of my founders. They're so monofocused on bringing this product out there, and sometimes it is to the decrement of their own well-being. And that's really breaks my soul, because it's like you're so much more valuable if you take care of yourself. Just because you love this project that you're putting out there, you need to be immediately like brought back to it's still work, and it's a lot of work. And because you love it, you might fall into the other opposite of saying like, I'm gonna like push through it because the mission is too big. And you mentioned about burnouts in sustainability, or like the turnover of talent. it's very scary because you wouldn't know when you need to reposition yourself in this grounded and calm manner to say like, I care about this so much that I will not exhaust myself because I need to be there for the long run. The mission that I'm quote unquote fighting for, fulfilling for, is so important to me that I need to be there for much longer than the 4 years you mentioned. Because
Yeah.
titles change, but the body of work you're putting out there can sustain. I think it's a trap when we think that just because we love something, we can get high on it so much that it's like, oh, we need to be careful to be able also to take good care of ourselves, especially because we like what we do. And no one teaches us that.
No.
Usually we get to learn those lessons when we're like on the third, fourth burnout. And that's something I really dislike, because it's a long time to get back to where you want to be able to operate. But this brings us to the conversation of why we need to even exhaust ourselves like that, like keeping up with the environment that is not created for us to do our best work. It's a massive responsibility for us to take control over the best work we can put forward. It's from it.
Personally, I've toyed with the ideas of the difference between success and fulfillment, and I focused on being more fulfilled, even though it may not be successful, because the fulfillment is more personal. I can look in the mirror and say, I am fulfilled with it, even though in some external metrics, it might not be successful. So, one of the tools that I personally use in order to get the impact. But I'm curious to know, you work as a fractional CMO. So, how do you intervene or help companies to blend that profitability with purpose? Is it at the very start, or is it a more reactive way of course correcting?
It's both ways. Sometimes clients come to me saying like, we need to reposition, we need to do things from a different lens, making it, let's say, profitable for the right reasons. Because obviously, if you have a business, it's important to stay true to the cause, and the cause can be very profitable when you know what you're doing. And I'm not saying that not everyone knows what they're doing. I'm just saying that it's required senior leadership for a reason, because you can translate that vision to all the departments and everyone that is involved in touching all touch points for the consumer. So there are two ways. It's much easier, I find, in my practice, that you take a brand and you build it from the ground up, from all the ingredients to be there, than to revive, so to say, something that maybe has some legacy, has some internal things that need to be tweaked in order for it to succeed. And then I come into a play where I only work with impact brands. I only work with brands that really have done the exercise of excavating their values and they align with mine. And then it's a match made in heaven, so to say, because there is it's almost like co-creation. It's a matter of like, I'll bring the knowledge from a Fortune 500 towards your brands, and we'll do it with integrity, and we'll do it with the best professionals out there. I often get the chance to invite collaborators to strengthen the team. And then it's like you have a formula that it will benefit your client, and they can see results much faster than normally they will get maybe more junior person. And similar to what you described, the CMOs, they don't have a good reputation. We are also on a rotation very, very easily, because it's like everyone thinks they know how to do marketing, and everyone thinks that marketing is the problem for everything in a company, or at least we have this like notion. But what it is exciting about it is that you get to build something that is there to last. You're not distracted by what's the next big thing, and you bring marketing that is rooted in the values of the company so well, because you've done your exercise the same way that the companies you work for are doing my values are like this, they'll come across like that. And then execution of those campaigns is something that I'm very passionate about, because we all have big strategies, but then you need to be there with the team to see how this will come to life. And we spoke also about adaptability. It's good to be there to see when you have to be adaptable and when it's just a matter of like, you haven't given it enough time to kick in. Results come with consistent effort. And that consistent effort, it's really, you need to be able to see also the results of your work. Not for years and years, but like you put foundations that it will benefit the brands for years more to come, no matter what is the next new thing. You just build their foundations either from start or reposition it with the intent to be lasting. I don't work with brands that want to be there for 2-3 years and then exit, for instance, or then I would argue most likely the solution you have out there is not either needed or yeah, it's something that it's maybe not. If I would not see it that people will use it in 3 years, I usually don't engage. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. As you mentioned, thought that came to mind was, hopefully I'll say it properly, but to every hammer, the problem is a nail, or to every nail, the solution is a hammer. So sometimes I find within the sustainability, being able to think outside the box, or in another way, someone said to me, sometimes when you're looking for the solution to be A or B, mostly the answer is actually a C or a D. But because you're so focused on A and B, you can think outside it. So I think that relates with what you mentioned about the CMO. Because it's your field and you're so passionate about it, it's easy to zero in without perhaps seeing from a different coin. So that's good. Yeah, absolutely.
And you need to be it's such a humbling position also, because I think um, you you will notice immediately if it works or not with few consistent actions, and then the customer or the consumer is the final judge of like, oh yeah, do we get you? Do we understand what this intends to do? Do we see through the glossy campaigns, and we can find out what you do else in the, I don't know, in society that is we agree or we disagree with? Or do we portray the brand as intended? Or are people extremely tired of all this constant noise and they can't even make a choice because we pressure them to make the choice now, buy now, buy now. It's like,
Yeah.
it's not about buying things. It's about making sure that you have some need that we can fulfill. And it's not about like us trying to glorify things that are not true. People are so, if given the chance, people can see through many things. And I enjoy creating campaigns that actually speak the truth. And then you empower your customer or consumer to decide. Yeah, it's very humbling, because sometimes you might find out that we were wrong. And then again, I say we because it's never just one decision. You need to be asking a lot more questions to when you do your consumer research and they tell you something that maybe they don't follow through. You're like, oh yeah, we really had to launch this product. And then you see it is like, oh yeah, the research said so, but the actuality of it is not true. So you need to pivot. You need to be adaptable, as we spoke about it earlier. Yeah, it's very
Yeah,
humbling.
that's good. Yeah, hopefully we can tease out about the quality of seeking feedback. And as you were speaking, I noticed about some stats where what people or what customers and consumers are willing to pay for sustainable brands is less than what they actually pay for the concept of going back to the customer. But what I'm keen to know, perhaps the question here is, how do you decipher from what the customer is saying that they think they want? And perhaps if I can add another layer, Steve Jobs once said that sometimes you really
They
have to
don't
show
know.
to the customer. Can you perhaps share some insight as to the skill, the art of getting that feedback to minimize the chances of war?
But you're speaking about visionary things like products that they couldn't even imagine that can be either created or be there for them. What we do often, it's just like all the other tech companies. You can launch things in the pre-seed, or you can test it if you have a wait list for those things. Just need to be able to explain exactly what type of solution you're creating at the moment, and easily you will notice, do people even resonate with the message? At the moment, we can do A/B testing all the time. It's good that we have all these tools on our disposal, because then we get signals that is like, not only they're willing to get on a wait list, not only they're willing to tell us, yes, we're going to pay between this and that. And then you always need to put a ratio between like, okay, they claim this and that. We have this database, and then see the results afterwards. If we have the demo, are they purchasing for it? Are they willing to wait until we produce it? Can we explain to people why it takes so long? Can we be very transparent from our side, and then hoping that the response will be what we aiming to do. And it comes from really asking the right type of questions, sparking their curiosity so that you can be able to say like, wow, we thought this is the product they want. We asked them. We'll produce something that they really is like the answer to all their questions or the solution to all their questions. Of course, otherwise you need to put a lot of money into marketing, which is pouring and pouring, and every CMO wants to have tremendous budgets. But the reality is that when things get tougher, economy wise, you need to be even more impactful. You are meant to be asked to be scrappier. You are asked to be doing much more with less. And a good way to do it is A/B testing all the time. And for some of the things, it's also, this is where I say that it's art. It's like you can A/B test so many things, but there is sometimes this knowing of like, I wonder if Steve Jobs was still alive, like, how would he know that we all needed a freaking iPod back then? I didn't buy one because I was never part of this, like the cool crew, the trendsetters and all of that, or the late adopter to the trends. But you maybe know that there is also this, like, if you have an idea in your head and it comes and it just doesn't let you sleep at night, most likely it's something that needs to come through you. And I would argue that many of the visionary leaders have so many ideas like that, and they just had the ability to attract the right type of talent to push that idea through. And marketeers like myself and many other folks are enabling that, to say like, is this idea really at the right time with the right type of audience? How much they're willing to pay so that it's profitable enough so that we can make something big? And I would say, if you don't want your idea might be big, but it's okay to also have small, just very good ideas. Because I just, similar to you, when you speak of Steve Jobs, or when, like, I'm more fascinated by someone that decided that it's very niche idea that will change few lives, but it will change them fundamentally.
Yeah.
I'm more excited about that. And this could also be just like, oh, playing smaller. I sometimes think that we think big ideas and scalability because more is more. But sometimes if you are like, no, do small things way better than anyone else, we just don't know how much more effective that could be, because we don't speak
Yeah.
about the smaller brands. We don't speak about the brands that actually really are there for their customer day in and day out.
Yeah.
And part of my work is also to allow those brands to have access to top-notch strategies rather than just the big brands with big marketing working budgets. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So how does your leadership mentorship journey help to unlock
Mm.
opportunities in senior executives or those who are building the brands?
So how does it help me to do that, you mean?
Yeah. Perhaps you can share about
Yeah.
how your mentorship
Oh, yeah.
journey works. And there might be a listener who likes your incredible profile from the Adidas to the Reebok. And so a gist of that journey. Yeah.
For the mentorship, it's extremely important to know it's not like coaching. It's not like different. It's very different in a sense that you have someone that is on your corner, but is also brutally honest and most likely has been through similar, challenges with other brands. And how it changes is that I had the opportunity now for the past 2 years to be working in faceted and in different industries, because I had the chance to work for one brand or two brands for the longest time, and that gave me the opportunity to gain a lot of access to information and know-how, but only in one industry. And then I had this opportunity to branch out and do multiple industries with the lens of impact or the lens of social entrepreneurship. And then when we come to speak with one another for mentorship, is like, okay, depending on how senior the brand is or the entity that is being created, it's super important to be supported in all parts of it, because what type of mentorship you require in the beginning is very different than when you're scaling up. I provide the service of being there for the founder and the idea that needs to grow, and it comes through trusting the process. And the process is the most messy process you can think of, because many of the founders get too attached to their idea, too attached to the business itself, too attached to the outcome of it or what success would look like. And God forbid, if they too early get funding and they're not prepared for it, they need to be able to know how to optimize the resources that they already have. The sheer amount of what it takes to hold that when you get the bigger first funding. I get goosebumps when I see founders getting their fundings, because it's like it will request you to work on a very different level, and what it means to go with someone that actually knows what that feels like. And I don't believe that we all have to be building massive brands. As I mentioned to you, we just need to be able to build brands that matter. And I think that those are the people that I love working with and mentoring, and see them through all the aspects of their business, and not see it as like a single. Oh yeah, I need, for instance, someone will come, can you mentor me to hire my whole C-suite? That's fine. Do you even need a C-suite? Like, there are so many more questions around that. Like, what will strengthen, the entity you're creating or the brand you're creating? Because often with mentoring, it's you get the discussion in one like you start the discussion on one topic, and it turns out it's completely different, and it's a very beautiful co-creation. I definitely love doing it with multiple teams simultaneously, because you also see the wave of, oh wow, they're going with this, and you have to be able to put their needs before anyone else's, because they might have a very different value on why they're doing what they're doing. And you're there to strengthen their ability to push it through sustainably without burning out, without hopefully taking decisions that will cost them too much. And I'm not talking money. I'm talking a lot more sleepless nights and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's great. Kremena, this was both grounding and energizing. Where can listeners or those watching go to learn more about your work?
I'm supposed to be more easily found on LinkedIn. So if anyone feels called to connect with me, please drop me a message on LinkedIn. If you want to be mentored by me or simply want to have a conversation, it will be my pleasure. And I'm mostly on LinkedIn. I might not be the fast ones to respond, I must admit, but I'm definitely mostly there. Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to Sustainability Transformations. Remember, the real transformation begins at the intersection of integrity and action. So until next time, please lead with purpose. Thank you so much.